Welcome back, and today we are going to be taking a look at the Kikka as per request by Miss Red. Thank you very much for supporting today's video. We are going to take a little bit of an in-depth look at the Kikka. The Kikka is a plane that's completely overshadowed by planes like the Su-11. And why is that, you might ask? Because the Su-11 is essentially this thing, except simply better. The Kikka does maintain its speed much better in something like a turn, but it comes at a little bit of a drawback. You are a bit of a brick. Now this thing, it doesn't turn too bad, it doesn't dogfight too bad, but you need to dogfight in a very prolonged manner, and you need to fly this thing very slow and methodical, and that's really the main downside of this plane. The Kikka truly tests your experience. It's all about taking the right fights, picking the right targets, knowing when to engage, when to disengage, and it's a plane that's not very flashy. It's a very boring plane to watch if you don't know what's going on. When you watch Kikka videos, especially the good matches, it looks like you are simply getting easy lobbies where everyone just kind of kills themselves. And to a certain degree this is definitely true, because the Kikka is all about taking opportunities with both your hands and doing your usual. It's not very responsive. It's all about maintaining control, and if you are at a disadvantage, it can be kind of hard to play. And that's the second issue right there. Especially if you are stock and you only have one gun and they are very inaccurate and half your shells are even worse than that, you're gonna get a lot of hits. And with this plane you really need your shots to count. You only have 50 rounds per gun. The ammo isn't that much of an issue if you don't spray a lot. However, with the last Type 5 nerf, the shells are now slower, they are more inaccurate, and they definitely don't hit as hard since they added real shitter. So if you only have one of them, you already lose half your guns, then you lose half your accuracy, and then you lose half the good shell. So essentially you are looking at like basically 1 or 2 accurate shots out of all those 50 rounds. And you might say, well, that sounds pretty rough, and you'd be right. The stock grind of this thing is one of the worst in the games, because not only will your guns absolutely hinder you, you're also even more on the clock, because your prolonged dogfight capabilities are also out of the windows, because with the stock engines this thing is simply not competitive enough, and the airframe is already not that nimble, not that responsive. Overall, this thing basically already needed everything to go right, at least in most matches. Of course, when you get down tier to 6.0 or you get your average 7.0 full of 7.0 lobby, you can actually do some things. But 7.3, 7.7 and especially 8.0, you're gonna have issues. You're not fast enough, you're not nimble enough. There's basically always something they do better than you. And that's why it's so important to fly this thing completely with your brain. This thing does not fly with your hands. You're basically playing chess and the rest is playing checkers. And if they are starting to play chess, you simply lose because you end up being a pigeon. Now we have the Spitfire at altitude. Now he's not a massive threat, but it's a Spitfire. He's at altitude, and if I then decide to go and pounce on the guy below me, guess what happens? I will go below about 600 kilometers an hour, even if I maintain my speed and I energy trap everyone below me. If I go 5 to 600, maybe even 700, that Spitfire can simply dive on me and I'm dead. So I go head on with him, we manage to kill him, and head-ons are a very important thing with this plane as well. Getting quick kills is important. We now kill the Spitfire, we have free reign down here, we come in, we kill the first guy that's not really paying attention, and we disengage. We don't stay in the furball, we don't start dogfighting all of them, even though the 262 is slow behind us. I'm instead gonna keep my energy, get a little bit of altitude, and see if we can find someone else that's a prime target. I want to go for the targets that take the least amount of effort to kill for me. SK60 is below me, sure, but the Su-11s are my hard counters, so instead I'm gonna go for them. Su-11 flies in front of me because he's going way too slow, then we disengage and we go for the second Su-11. Now I look around because I'm above the furball and I want to make sure that I'm not getting caught off guard, so he kind of got away. I looked away at the most inopportune time because he did something the moment I looked away, so I wasn't prepared for it, and this plane, you're not gonna be following him. Now I can do so, and I can ride a 6, and I will probably kill him in the long run, because the Su-11 does maintain speed a little bit worse than us, and if you have the position behind them, you can kind of drain their balls and they will eventually fall out of the air. But there's multiple people around, and doing that is simply a way to kill yourself. So we see the A29 going up and vertical. I already see my Kikka going at him, he gets killed. Instead we go for this one. We miss a few shots, we hit a shot, he flies into the ground a little bit later, and then a little bit later we fly into another Su-11. Now we shoot in the head-on, we don't actually hit anything, and we disengage. Another A-29 comes in, who's mostly the reason I'm including this second part of the clip. We get a hit, and it's very important to not get caught up on getting hits and damaging people and being like, I need to get this kill because I damaged him, I need to get this RP. That's how you die in this thing. You cannot get greedy and you need to take your time. And again, that's why it's so boring to watch, because everything I do on the screen looks super boring. I'm basically flying straight. I see an F-84 coming in, I'm gonna dive away for a little bit, pick up a little bit of speed and try to make sure that if he engages me, I have the ability to retaliate. In this case, he breaks off, but he does push us away and he makes us dive a little bit, waste a lot of energy, so we have to side climb for a little bit. And because I only have 7 minutes of fuel, or 8 minutes I think, it kind of throws an entire wrench in the works, because I lost a lot of time and fuel mostly to get back into position. So I fly away for a little bit, I go under the radar, and then I climb back up. We get to about 3 kilometers and we are able to do something again. And we get another F-84 engaging us, which is a little bit of an issue. Now, he again doesn't try to air brake us, he doesn't try to sit on our 6, and he keeps his speed and he flies away, which is the way you have to do it. But very often you will run into F-84s, especially F-84Bs. They are grinding, they want one kill, they don't care about anything in the world. They will just sit on your 6 and they will air brake you, and because this thing doesn't turn particularly well and it's all about the energy and draining your enemy's balls, in a defensive posture you're gonna do exactly nothing to him and you are probably going to die. I've been hit twice in this session. One time I got my engine one shot from 900 meters, which is a pretty common practice considering the engines are basically magnetic towards bullets, and the other game is gonna be at the end here. You'll see it in a minute. But the damage model is just not there. You need to fly this thing super cautiously, because if anyone sneezes at you, you're gonna lose an engine. Now you also have the rocket boosters, where people say, well, you can use them until later in the game. They only last about 5 seconds and they do add weight. Rocket fuel is heavy and the performance that you'll lose from logging it around all game is probably more than you gain in those 5 seconds. In those 5 seconds you might gain like 50 to 100 kilometers an hour depending on your angle, and it's simply not worth it. Just use it on takeoff, don't break your gear off to make sure you have a boost later in the game. Keeping your plane pristine also helps with landing quicker, because you don't have to repair before you actually bail out of the plane and reset. So this way you can circumvent the 15 to 20 second timer if you have a very good crew. Now this furball is going on around us and I just kind of fly in, I pick someone, I lock him down, we shoot at him and we leave. Now here's the 262, and the 262 is a lot more maneuverable than us. He starts defensive flying from a decent range, so I'm not really gonna get any shots in. And because the 262 loses more speed, and the fact that he's a little bit more maneuverable, I'm actually gonna cut throttle. Now I normally wouldn't do this because it's very risky, because if I mess this up, I'm essentially dead. But I have my entire air force behind me, so if I go too slow, nothing really happens, because he cannot only focus on me, and this kind of allows me to just sit on the 6. And this is why it's important to take opportunities with both your hands. Instead of trying to play passive every time and trying to drain the 262 of energy, if I tried to do that there, guess what? I wouldn't have gotten the kill, and I jumped there because I tapped out for a second. Now, this F-80 is dogfighting the Yak-15. Now I can fly straight at him, or I can keep my speed and kind of come at an angle where he can't really pitch in at us. He's gone way too slow, he doesn't have the ability to really do anything, he also doesn't see me, he sees me a little bit too late. And we have the energy here, we are going much faster than him, even though he was higher than us. So he tries to go into an energy trap because he had altitude, and that doesn't work because I'm still going 600 at this very moment, and look at the speed I'm gonna be catching him in a second here. Absolutely no chance. Now look at this damage, that's 4 shells. That's another shell, that's another shell, and another 2 and another 2, only to be set on fire. Now he is gonna burn up and he is going to be dead. But these guns are super bipolar and they will fail you when you need them the most, which is probably one of the most annoying features of this plane. Now we get the F-80 dead, he's gonna burn up, and then we reach the F-84, that the second he sees us he's gonna turn around. And I wouldn't really care that he turned around to get a little bit of airspeed, but then he starts mocking us about the airfield AA. So I took that personally. I'm gonna push him into the corner of the map, and if he tries to fly away, he's gonna map border and he's gonna be super slow, and I can just dive on him. And if he doesn't, he needs to turn around and he's gonna end up going directly under us. And he already starts flying towards the airfield, and because people like this are so damn predictable, I can position my plane in a way that he's just simply gonna fly directly in front of me. Now, this is a fight that's actually pretty scary for me. Even if I'm on his 6, if he flies it right, I die. But he's so busy trying to get back to the airfield that he doesn't realize that I'm directly on his ass until it's way too late. We learn something new every day. I just discovered the Rolands and he just discovered some 30 mils. And this right here is exactly what I meant. It looks like I simply dove on him and he gave me a 6. And essentially that is what happened, but it's all about the setup. I pushed him into the corner. I stayed above him, I cut him off, I made sure to sit in a position where he couldn't run back to the airfield because that's all he cared about. If he hadn't gone to where I thought he was going to, if he had actually played it how he should and saw that I was sitting there so he couldn't go to the airfield and he flew the other way, I would have never caught him. He would have equalized the energy, I would have ran out of fuel and he would have killed me, even in a dogfight. It's still pretty scary. I don't like fighting FAD4Gs in this thing. They're faster than you, they turn tighter than you, and yes, in a full-on dogfight they maintain their speed a little bit worse, but they're scary. And they also have 50 cals they can spray, and if they hit your engine, you're probably going to die. This time around, we did manage to survive a few rounds, which is very much welcome, because the damage model is not very forgiving. Overall, you don't want to get hit in this thing, and fighting something that's much faster than you, that gets an air spawn, and is actually pretty good at just pulling into the shot, is very dangerous. You really need to watch out for planes like the FAD4 because they will absolutely ruin your day. Planes like the 262 on the other hand are not that much of an issue. SK60s on the other hand, on top of that, are very annoying. They're hard to hit, they're not very fast, they're not that much of an issue, but they're also always flying after you because they just think for some reason that they are eventually going to catch you. He won't. But because I want to fight this 262, he is sitting there and he is going to be a problem. Because if I take the fight with the 262 right now, he's simply going to pitch straight into me and he's going to spray me down with his 30mm. And I don't want that to happen. Now we get this 262, we have much more speed, we don't merge with him properly, we just kind of fly on sideways and we're going to try to stall him out. He tries to pitch up, it's not going to happen. And we can actually take this fight a little bit quicker because he's actually going so damn slow. But I'm also on the clock and you see how small that window is. Why am I on the clock? Because everyone in my team sees that I'm stalling someone out, which means that everyone is now coming over here to kill the guy that I'm trying to kill. And that's the other issue with this plane. Because you are slow, because you are methodical, and because you are taking your time to kill people, because you don't have like turning performance advantages and stuff like that, you need to wear them down, and it's kind of like a death by 1,000 cuts. By the time you get to the kill part, your team has already cleaned them up. It's the same thing with the MiG-19. This thing is very similar to something like the MiG-19. However, the MiG-19 is actually very strong. The MiG-19 is faster than a lot of the things it faces. The MiG-19 out verticals essentially everything. And with the correct speed management, you can dogfight with almost everyone as well. It just takes time to kill people because it's not a plane that simply stamps on the elevator, pulls 300 million degrees of AOA, and then just gets an instant shot. You need to drain their energy, but it also means that the enemy has to comply with you trying to drain their energy. They can simply extend, they can simply run away. And that's where the real challenge comes. You need to fly this thing on a very fine line of being aggressive and defensive. And if you do a little bit too much of one of them, if you go a little bit too aggressive, you might get that kill, but you're probably gonna die instantly after. And if you fly too defensively, you're never going to kill anyone. You're just gonna be flying around. You're going to get one kill a game at the very most, because you get people that are stalled out, bombers, attackers, you know, people that are in a dogfight, third parties, stuff like that. So sure, you can say I go 4-1 or whatever. But that doesn't mean that you are actually effective. That means that you've won the games and survived the games that you would have already won if you weren't there. So that doesn't really say anything. Spitfire comes in and we're just gonna give you another showcase of these incredible guns. We're gonna go head on with him. We shoot a few rounds. And guess what? We get a water and an oil leak. Now his engine is all kinds of fucked up because of that. But you know how it goes once an enemy has been damaged. He's gonna try his absolute hardest to die to someone else. He's just gonna pitch up straight vertical and ignore the other guy that's coming in. Now you might say that it's like his last ditch attempt to get a kill, and I understand. But why does this always happen? I always get a crit and then they will do their absolute best to die to someone else. Now you might say that it's a steal. I disagree, but you are free to digress. And then we have an attacker. He has been chasing us for a good while. We need to get a little bit of separation. I know that he's not gonna let up, and I am him. The attacker is a very similar plane to what I am. It doesn't turn particularly tight, but it has a lot of power. So it's important to get the position early on. So I'm trying to stay a little bit horizontal, trying to move as much as I can, trying to not go too fast. And because he dove under me, he picked up a lot of speed. He's gonna turn a little bit wider than us, and we are now basically on a 6. And again, this kill is not going to be flashy, because I'm not going for the shot yet. You can tell that I'm just trying to kind of sit here, keep my energy, and try to sit in a spot where I can actually punish him. Now, I'm being horizontal here. I almost get the shot here, but I miss it, unfortunately. But at this point, he is too slow. He doesn't have the ability to pull up into this. He doesn't turn well enough. And all I need to do is make sure that I maintain my energy. Now, if he tries to pitch up into this, I will instantly kill him with my landing flaps, because it will decrease the radius a little bit. It will make me sit above him, but he tries to dive away. It doesn't really matter at this point, because we just have him by the balls. We are completely above him. We have him locked down. I mean, he's not gonna go anywhere. He couldn't really dive much further. I'm not sure if he tried to dive it into the ground there. It doesn't matter. We won the dogfight, and that's all that matters. LA-200 comes in, and this is another plane that's very annoying to deal with. I can't kill him. He can't kill us. It's one of those planes. And it's incredibly insufferable to deal with. Actually no, I still rather fight it than an F-84. But overall, it's such a rat plane to fight. They can't really do anything, but you also can't really do anything to them. SU-11 comes in, and we are going about 800 speed. So I go up over his nose. And I kind of misjudged him here, because he simply just pulled straight in. He was below us, he had an advantageous position. And I took a bit of a wrong line. With the Kikka, you don't really get second chances. So I instantly go into the defensive. I start diving. I want him to go fast for 2 reasons. SU-11 doesn't roll very well at high speed. And there is a lot more mistakes to make once you are flying at high speed. Energy management is important. I'm trying to make him dive on us. But the issue is I need to maneuver, and he loses more speed in these maneuvers. So I actually start throttling down. It's all about trying to stay out of his guns. We're still fast enough to the point where he is kind of awkward to aim, and he shoots out in front of us. He starts out turning, but he turns back in like everyone does once they start panicking. We get the shot, and we put him to sleep. Very risky, very painful, but you need to know the limitations of your aircraft. And even though I don't have any real advantages, and with that I mean advantages that I can actually use to reliably win, because his decrease in roll rate is not something that will make him reliably win if he plays it right. All he had to do is take a little bit of a detour, kind of break off left or right or go up, solidify his position, and that reversal wouldn't have happened, because I'm simply way too stiff. I mean, I'm most of the time, but you know, that's besides the point right now. The Kikka is good at rolling. It's a bit like with the 190 and the Spitfire. If you have a Spitfire on your 6 while you are flying the 190A, sure, you have a better roll rate. Sure, you have the high speed maneuverability, but if the Spitfire just goes a little bit slower than you, there's very little you can do. You can reverse them. You can dogfight them at high speed. You can kill them in those kind of fights. But is it reliable? Sure, because most of the enemies are not very good at flying the Spitfire. But is the plane actually capable of doing it reliably? Probably not. The Kikka, it's very limited. And I hope that today's video portrays that this plane is just kind of there. It's hard to fly. It's one of those planes that's actually, it gets better if you know how to play it. But it's still limited. Because if the enemy also knows how to play it, guess what? You're back to square one. There's an LA-200 coming in. Now he's gonna go head on with the 262. I'm probably writing him off as dead. But he actually dodges, to my surprise. He tries to pull back in, but we get a very easy shot. We take off his wingtip. And then we go head on with the F-80. And well, he gets absolutely clapped. We then double tap him to put him back to sleep. But that's it. I mean, these games are, as I said, if you made it this far into the video, I did warn you that it's kind of boring to watch. Because everything that's going on is all about the stuff that you kind of have to hear and things that you can't see. It doesn't look impressive. It doesn't look flashy. Now we get an A29 here, and we need to play this properly because he comes in from high altitude. He has a lot more energy. And he's actually pretty maneuverable, so we need to make sure that I again stay out of his nose. And I know now from this fight that he is not gonna take the dogfight. He's gonna use his energy. He's gonna play it safe. And he's in the same boat as us. He is also in a plane that has to fly like I am right here. And for the BR, my plane is actually better. But in this 1v1, I much rather be in the A29. Now, he goes vertical. He's trying to energy trap me. And that's perfectly fine. The issue is, I recommend you that if you are this passive, don't do the same thing twice in a row. Because I already know what you are going to do right now before you even get close to getting the shot. So I'm going to pick up a little bit more speed this time. Because I have more speed to gain than him. He will go with stop speed. And I won't. So me trying to get more speed in is important to close in the distance once he starts going vertical here. You can see that I set up for him to go straight up. He didn't. He is reacting to me. So now we go to phase 2. I know that he's reacting to me, so now we are gonna bait him into diving on us. I'm gonna dive underneath him, pretend that I don't have much speed, and then we're just gonna pitch straight in, because I have the advantage here. I'm below him, I'm going faster than him, so I will finish that turn a little bit before he does. And this kind of fight, it's all about experience. I just fought so many people that I kind of know what people do. The first step is they fly it like a flowchart. They don't really react to what you are doing. They will do their own plan. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And secondly, you have people that actually react to you. But they react to you in a very basic manner. And then I try to bait them into doing something. And if they then don't take that bait, or they actually punish me for it, I mean, what can you do? I'm in a position there where I'm at a massive disadvantage. So I need to try something. I need to do something. So me baiting him into going down on me is putting me in a worse position. You're right. However, if I don't do that, I eventually die anyway. Taking a little bit of risk when you are at a worse position than your enemy, most of the time is less risky than not taking any risk at all. And I say this very often. It's all about maximizing whenever you are in a bad position. Whether it's getting an extra kill, whether it's trying something that might work, trying to keep your energy versus someone that has twice your speed. In the long run, you're just gonna give him 20 shots. However, if you try to close out the game a little bit quicker, you might actually be able to get that kill in. You might actually be able to punish him, and you might actually be able to survive that match. We go ahead on with the AH1. Same deals with the Spitfire, except this one he is gonna go die to someone else yet again, because your teammate is suicidal and he wants that last kill. Thank you all for watching. Thank you very much for sponsoring today's video. And we'll see you all again in the next one.